just by what he has done so far, overachieving at all his teams. There is definitely a similarity, and I think especially in the high pressing, there's definitely a similarity with the current Liverpool under Jurgen. You could maybe say that Jurgen's style is a bit more direct. Maybe Arne Slot likes to build and play a little bit more, like football through the whole pitch. He doesn't really think in obstacles, but more in kind of like chances, and it's a huge chance for him to do well. There's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. Absolutely.
With the news that Liverpool appear to be on the verge of appointing Arne Slot as their new manager, I have esteemed Dutch football expert Arthur Renard with me here. First of all, did I pronounce your name correctly, and did I pronounce the new incoming Liverpool manager's name correctly?
I think it's pretty good, to be honest. We would say slot, so it would be slightly different, but with so many names, like the Dutch pronunciation is something slightly different, but it makes it's completely clear. So yeah, go ahead.
So talk to us about Mr. Slut. His style of play. We all hear that he plays a 4-2-3-1
Mhm.
formation predominantly. It's very attacking based, and it's quite a high pressing game, which, to all of us makes him sound like Jurgen Klopp 9 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, no, there is definitely a similarity, and I think especially in the high pressing, there's definitely a similarity with the current Liverpool under Jurgen. Maybe which is a little bit different. You could maybe say that Jurgen's style is a bit more direct. Maybe Arne Slot likes to build and play a little bit more, like football through the whole pitch, where maybe Klopp, you could argue, is maybe even more direct. So there might be a little difference in that detail. But with the directness, and especially when they don't have the ball, I think you're right, I was doing some research today, and I found that in the Champions League Feyenoord, I think they were the fourth team in kind of like most recoveries on the let's say the last 40 meters on the pitch, so like really high up on the pitch. The stat, given that Feyenoord is obviously, like in the Champions League, definitely not one of the big teams if you look at the budget and the player, just the value of the players. So what I like about Slot, and also again is the comparison with Klopp, that he likes to play his game and the pressing game wherever he plays and against anyone, So it doesn't matter if he plays, let's say, Real Madrid away or whatever game, he plays his style. And that is something I think Liverpool fans will like a lot, that they just like the identity, is their identity, not like regardless of any kind of like opposition or team they play. So there's a lot of like I think to be enthusiastic about.
You mentioned there that maybe he is not quite as direct as Jurgen in his
Hmm.
kind of style of play. We've heard that, he's kind of spoken about Pep Guardiola as an influence before. So is his style of play, if we've got Jurgen at one end of the scale and Pep at the other, it's a little bit more toward the middle?
To be honest, it's funny you mention it because in my piece, which I was writing today, I found some quotes from actually Arne Slot and Guardiola, and he's a big fan of Guardiola. So I would say it's even more towards Guardiola. Although I guess with Guardiola and Klopp, they both like their teams to, have the ball to attack. So there's definitely, I think, similarities between them as well. But yeah, he's a huge admirer of Guardiola. I'm just like I can share a few quotes. Like he says as well. Pep Guardiola gives me the ultimate joy in football. Slot said in Football International in 2023, so last year. There's no team in the world I would rather watch than Man City, followed by Napoli, Arsenal, and Brighton. But City, and again, it's not my intention to compare us with them, has a similar style of play to how we want to play with Feyenoord. 4-3-3, building from the back, wanting to apply pressure quickly. So It's interesting, you know. I think it's some really interesting quotes. Yeah, and that gives you an idea, you know. So it could be, man, those Liverpool Man City games, if he gets appointed, they could be really interesting.
One of the other things that we have heard a lot about Arne Slot in the last couple of days, because let's be honest, this has moved very quickly, is his ability to coach and develop players. Something Jurgen has always been very acclaimed for. I don't think there's any player that has arrived at Liverpool and not become a better player, or a
Mm,
player that Jurgen's inherited or come through the youth system. The players that, ultimately were key men when Feyenoord won the Eredivisie, the season before last,
mm.
they were all signed for very, very nominal fees. Talk to
Yeah,
us about, the way that he's signed, well, acquired some players who were
yeah.
less than £1 million in euros in terms of the midfielder Mats Weber.
Oh yeah, he's incredible. But also the striker, you know, I think Santiago Jimenez, he came also for not that much money, and he has proved, especially the title-winning season last year, he proved such important, be an important player. And this year he's done quite well as well. But you're right, you know, he's managed to get some really kind of like good players on the cheap. And that must be music to the ears of the Liverpool owners. So I see a similarity there for sure. You know, like there's been quite a few players, yeah, new in the last few years, and they developed pretty well. And apart from that, he also has, you know, like some young talents. There is one Quillinci Hartman who actually made his debut for the Dutch national team as well. And if he is fit, I wouldn't be even surprised if he will play at the Euros. He's a bit like Trent, to be honest. A bit like Trent, you know, a local guy, a wingback kind of player, or yeah, fullback, but kind of wingback, you know, coming. It's actually now I didn't even mention it in my article, but a bit like Trent. So he definitely has an eye for yeah, you know, like young talent, and also has the kind of guts, you know, to yeah give those talents, you know, a chance in the team. So again, you know, that's something Liverpool and definitely its owners as well will like.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've seen Liverpool. You and I were actually together at Wembley when we saw Liverpool's youth team
Oh
effectively
yeah.
win the Carabao Cup recently. So they do need to have a manager that wants to work with players and develop them rather than a checkbook manager, as they called. Um, so talk to us about Arne Slot. In terms of his personality. Is
Mm,
he a charismatic fella? He seems to be, a guy who the media like, the fans like. That
yeah.
and again, it seems to have
Yeah.
certain similarities with Jurgen.
Yeah, true. No, I agree with you. You know, he seems to get on really well with his players. You don't really hear players being unhappy or he I don't know. He seems to have a very straightforward and relaxed approach. There is maybe you can look this up. There's a clip of him at a team talk away at Ajax after the game, and you can see it there. You know, he's not really too emotional, but just kind of like you can see he is kind of like he connects with his players, but he still keeps some kind of like calm, kind of like I would say, yeah, approach. So yeah, I think, and also with the media, you know, yeah, he cracks sometimes, I think, a little joke, and yeah, he seems to get on well with people around him. So yeah, that speaks for him. Absolutely.
So we've spoken very positive about him so far, but we kind of have to discuss maybe the concerns from a Liverpool perspective. We're going
Mm,
from Jurgen, this world acclaimed manager, one of, if not the best managers in the world, to somebody that most Liverpool supporters wouldn't have heard of a week ago, that's for sure.
mm,
There will also be the whole he's only ever known Dutch football. Will that transfer to the Premier League?
yeah,
And then, of course, there's the whole Eric Ten Hag
yeah.
similarity there. So, how does he differ to Ten Hag, and how do we know that he's maybe going to have more success?
Yeah. No, I think it's a good point. And in the end of the day, you never know, you know, whether yeah, somebody will be a success or not. It depends on yeah, different circumstances. Personally, I think to succeed Jurgen Klopp is just very tough, regardless who you are, you know, like even Xabi Alonso, who seems to be at the moment, you know, maybe the top of the top, you know, probably would find it difficult. So I think that's a very hard thing to succeed someone like Klopp. In terms of yeah, comparisons with Ten Hag or just how he did. I think what he's done at Feyenoord is yeah, in a way, like even more remarkable. Although obviously Ten Hag won many titles, so it's difficult to compare. But the budgets, I put it in my article as well. I think the last 2 years, Feyenoord has spent around maybe 30 million on players, where Ajax had an outlay of around 100 million. And Feyenoord obviously is finishing both seasons above Ajax. So that is for me, that definitely says something about, yeah, just like the kind of like yeah, what he gets for what he spends, and etc. etc. Although yeah, Ajax also maybe receives more money for outgoing players. Um, but yeah, but it's true, you just never know, and just by what he has done so far, overachieving at all his teams. An interesting quote as well is from Marco van Basten, actually, who was talking in Rondo, a Dutch TV talk show. And he said like, yeah, he's just sure he can do it at Liverpool. He said like he can go to Bayern Munich, Liverpool, you name it, and he will do well. And he says like, um, so he thinks, players at Liverpool are even better than at Feyenoord. So it's easier for them to kind of like, like translate his message on the pitch. And he said like, yes, those players are also more stubborn. But he said like, I think he can manage that. So yeah, if Van Basten says that obviously tells you something. And then and in the end of the day, there's probably, there might be things happening which we cannot like foresee now. So there's always an element of surprise and unpredictability. And then yeah, the Klopp factor, him leaving. Yeah, that's a big thing. So yeah, let's see.
I guess that it also, it speaks of the man's character in that he is prepared to take the job after Jurgen.
Yeah,
He must be backing himself.
yeah.
He must be confident in his own ability and that
Yeah.
that he can personally step up to that level.
Yeah, I agree. That definitely tells you something. I probably it's also a thing of like, you don't get the Liverpool job offered every day. So, it's also yeah, probably yeah, that's also a factor. But yeah, I agree. There's absolutely he could have thought as well, let me do a few more years at Feyenoord. Probably, or there's definitely a chance he would do well. And if other jobs come available, he probably will be in the at least, kind of in the mix, like to be considered. Um, so yeah, I think he's and that's I think the good thing about him. He's not thinking too much in dilemmas, in difficulties, in obstacles. So this is probably one of those examples as well. I think that well, it is obviously a massive challenge to succeed someone like Klopp, but he's really positive. Yeah, I think a really positive kind of person. So he doesn't really think in obstacles, but more in kind of like chances. And it's a huge chance for him to do well. So I think his personality is really like, okay, I'm just getting this opportunity. Yeah. What you hear from it is that he likes the opportunity to go for it if the clubs reach an agreement. So I think with his personality, that kind of like at least, like the he likes to go for the challenge.
It's that whole glass half full, right?
Yeah,
So Jurgen is always looking for the positive side of things,
yeah,
rather than negative.
same.
And to be a
Yeah,
top manager, I think that's really what you need to be
yeah.
rather than to go in
Yeah.
pessimistically. The job of Liverpool manager, and it's often said that like Liverpool's managers are held in a different regard to other clubs. The fans tend to give them more time, but they also
Mm.
hold them in more esteem. Some of the greats that are associated with Liverpool Football Club are their managers, from Shankly to Paisley, all the way through to modern day, and with Jurgen. Do you think that he has the ability to not just be Liverpool manager, but to be that whole overview of the club, the city, buying into what it means to be the Liverpool manager?
Yeah, I would think yes, because of his personality. He's a very yeah, how he comes across as a very open and yeah, sensitive to his surroundings. So he would be, I think, sensitive to that kind of element which you mentioned. Um, So yes, I would think, yeah, absolutely. It's obviously wait and see, but yeah, I think he would definitely embrace that kind of like extra layer of, yeah, the things you mentioned, that kind of thing, I think he would, yeah, embrace. Yeah,
For sure. If you were to look at like the Liverpool squad at the moment, I think that one of the things that he's definitely got is that his methods seem to translate well to the players. It's not a case of ripping up the squad and having to start
yeah,
again. But if you looked at the squad now and what you know from his time at Feyenoord and how they play, what sort of positions might Liverpool look to be bringing a player in the summer? I know that obviously if he plays a two in midfield? Would he need to be bringing some
yeah.
to play alongside McAllister and maybe another forward? I don't know if you could.
Yeah, in a way I find it's a difficult one because obviously I think the Liverpool squad at the moment is not also in terms of age, it's not too bad. It's something I really like about the moment of Klopp leaving and about Klopp as well. He doesn't leave, the club in a kind of like, let's say, with a team full of people who are kind of like close to retire or maybe like had their best years behind them. um, but yeah, I to be honest, I feel that probably he would look at the positions, yeah, maybe what you mentioned, like where there has been maybe question marks or kind of like maybe people looking at Liverpool this season already. I don't know, maybe a striker, although yeah, I think Nunez, like and also other players have done pretty well at the position, but yeah, possibly. Yeah, possibly also maybe in defense. Let's see what Virgil will be doing. I think that's a massive thing. That's a really interesting thing, by the way. Obviously, he's Dutch. Slot is Dutch. My kind of gut feeling says that Virgil would like to see Slot coming, but that's purely me guessing. And that's a massive thing, I think, if I'm not wrong, I think Virgil as well said that he would, or that's kind of like what people kind of like assumed, that he wanted to wait with contract talks, to see who's coming in, and which is really understandable, like would he get on with a new manager? And I think just it's obvious to see, but the importance of Virgil van Dijk has been huge, so if he leaves, that's obviously then a massive thing, so that's an interesting point to talk about as well. Like, how do the players cope with Klopp's departure? Because Virgil might know Slot, but like you mentioned, a lot of the players, I know Slot well. People in Holland know Slot well, and they think, oh yeah, he can do well. But there might be players, in the Liverpool team thinking, well, I've never heard of him. I'm not convinced. It could be a success, but could also be, like not a success. And if some players get a huge opportunity elsewhere, that might be a thing as well. So, it's not a guarantee that Slot will have the squad as it is now, So
Well, I do recall there was some quotes from Adam Lallana quite some time after. I think it was actually after he'd left Liverpool.
mhm.
He admitted that he didn't really know who Jurgen Klopp was when he arrived
Right.
at Liverpool. And Jurgen Klopp at the time was a very well-known
Yeah.
manager from Borussia Dortmund, but Adam Lallana admitted to having to Google him when he took over at Liverpool.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
So, I don't know if footballers quite follow football as well as we sometimes maybe would think they do. So,
Yeah.
sure, I'm sure there'll be a lot of intrigue within the squad, and it could be a massive preseason for quite a lot of players. Just finally, then, sort of looking at Arne Slot and how he's suitable or not to Liverpool. What's your overall feeling? Do you think that Liverpool fans should be quite optimistic about this appointment? If
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. Absolutely. From at this point, like yeah, all the things we mentioned before, I think there should be definitely optimistic. Um, yeah, the things of like we mentioned, succeeding Klopp, and then just like I don't know, imagine like there's some players leaving or other things happening. You just don't know, so it is difficult to tell. But from what he has done so far, I like to look at what he's done so far because even before Feyenoord, he was the manager of Cambuur shortly in AZ. And with AZ, he was doing really well. So they were actually first, second in the league when the season got suspended, because of Corona. And in Holland, yeah, for him, unfortunately, the season was cancelled and not like as in the Premier League, kind of like, yeah, played out. But I think, maybe he could have won the league that year with AZ. So Yeah. So, the thing is, if you do it at different clubs, I think Liverpool fans should be really kind of like enthusiastic. Because why would he not do that at Liverpool? Obviously, it's a different language, but I think he has already done, team talks in English and those kind of things. So just by everything I've seen so far, I think there's a huge, there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. Absolutely.